Hey guys, I want to do a follow up video to the last video I just did on kind of a Reformed Baptist perspective on kids and worship and discipleship of children in the local church. I'm really just trying to get really practical on this one. There's a book I want to say a few things from and recommend, Parenting in the Pew. Maybe not the best book ever. It's good. You might not find all of it to be excellent, but there are parts that are certainly helpful. And those of you who have children in church every week will find that to be beneficial. There's a lot of good practical things, so I'll say something about that in a minute. But I just want to do a practical video. What do you do with your kids in the service? I mentioned in the previous video that we have over 100 young children at our services right now. We're a small church, and as parents we take that serious, and we have a long service. And so how do we do this? Because we want to do it well, and we're not willing to shorten the service, and we're not willing to eliminate the preaching and things that are necessary for our own discipleship and that we want our children to grow up into. But how do we, when they're young, grow them up into these corporate disciplines or these corporate means of grace and to really appreciate them? There are some practical things that could be said here. So 10, I'll say quickly. First, the Lord's Day is the Lord's Day. All right? Just mark it off on your calendar. You're not doing anything else that will infringe upon the corporate gathering. It is essential. Biblically, historically, we could talk about this all the time, but this is the Lord's Day. Make it the Lord's Day. Set it apart for worship to the Lord with his people. 2, if that's true that the Lord's Day is the Lord's Day, then it should be no problem to be proactive, to plan and get ready earlier so that you're not frantically trying to get everybody together, getting upset at everybody because you didn't plan well enough to get there on time. So start the getting ready process sooner, and don't let that become something to grieve the Spirit or create dissension or division in your home before church. Plan it out, and men, that you take the lead on that, brothers, on helping the kids get ready and making sure all that is done in a timely manner. On the way to church, this is the third thing. Pray. Make good use of your drive to church. Have the children pray. Each pray for the service. You and your wife pray for the service and for your own hearts and the Lord's blessing on the service. And then remind the kids when they're young, what are we going to do here? Well, we're going to worship. We're going to love our friends. We're going to be a blessing. Right? Well, is it a blessing to run around? And no, and so just remind them what they're there to do. They're there to worship. We don't just tell them what they're not there to do. We don't just say no running. No, we say we don't run because we want to be a blessing, right? We need to aim toward what they are to do proactively, not just reactively or prohibitively what they shouldn't be doing. Fourth, get there early enough to find a seat in the back or the sides. Now, I'm talking about those with young kids here, but the sides and the back is obviously preferable, which means everyone who isn't in that training phase with young kids should sit in the middle and toward the front, to give preferential treatment to those who are trying to train, just so they don't feel self-conscious that they're distracting everybody. If they can be on those back and corner areas, they can help their children to focus and to pay attention without feeling like they're distracting everybody if they're having to sit up at the front. So get there early to find a seat. We're going to try to start blocking those off. Let me say something from the book that she mentions about the sitting thing. She warns about avoid sitting close to best friends when the kids are very young. I think that's wise. It made me think about growing up in the church I was in. They actually had a youth section, and all the youth from the church sat there. So it was like 100 and something youth or more, and everybody just talked and distracted and passed notes. It was chaos. I can't believe they allowed that. Um, Not a good idea. I know we're not advocating for something like that at our church, but I'm just saying, um, let your kids, with our kids, we say you have to earn that. You need to prove yourself that you aren't going to be distracting your friend, or your friend won't be distracting you before you get to sit next to them. All right. Um, Number 5, expect them to sing, close their eyes during the prayer, be still. We want them. Look, here's the principle: they are there to worship. Right? They're not there because their parents are there to worship. They're there because God has made them to worship. They exist for God. Right? They are commanded to believe the gospel. They are commanded to sing to Him a new song. They're commanded to make a joyful noise to the Lord. They're to call upon the Lord. These things they're commanded to do. And we are commanded as parents to train them up in the ways of the Lord. And so when we bring our kids to church, we don't just say, hey, be quiet. Everybody's trying to worship. No, they need to be quiet so they can worship, so they can listen, so they can participate. All right? That's what they're there to do. Now, when they're really, really young, maybe it's best for part of the time that they have paper and crayons or something, and they are able to still listen. You ask them questions later, but they're coloring while they're listening to the sermon, or they're drawing pictures of what they're listening to. I know a lot of the parents have told me that their children do that stuff. I see no problem with that. Insofar as you're still asking them later if they're listening, right? And if there's, if you've got an infant that's not able to be in the nursery yet, we've got the foyer that if you need to step back at any point and still listen, the sermon's recorded, you can still hear the sermon. And all the things that we're doing, we're trying to just be mindful. Okay, this isn't just me and my kid here, and these noises don't bother me. We need to be mindful of those around us. They might be hindering others. Here's the big thing that I would want to remind us of. I think this is most important in this discussion, is that your children are watching you. Sir, ma'am, brother, sister, they're watching you. There's nothing more tragic to me than when I hear the story of someone who their story growing up was, I looked over and I would see my dad falling asleep in every sermon. I would look over and I would see my parents not singing. And just on the way to church, you could tell they didn't want to go, but they were really excited about going to eat or the ball game later or something. They're watching you, parents. They know if you care. Cultivate your love and affection for Christ, and then let them see it. That's the best training you'll ever do. They're watching us. So practically, bring a Bible. I understand we got Bible apps and you can read the Bible and follow on your phone, and I get all that. But your kid looking at you, whether you're holding a Bible there or your phone, that's sending a signal to them. And if they're old enough to read, buy them a Bible and make sure they bring it. I have a lot of things in my mind on Sunday morning, but one of those things is, are my children that can read able, do they have a Bible? Are they bringing their Bible to church? We need to be thinking about that. It matters. Our children are watching. This is the 9th thing. Wait for the ordinances until they understand and can receive them by faith. Wait for the ordinances until they can receive them by faith. So baptism comes after faith, we believe the scripture teaches. And so when your child makes a profession of faith in the gospel, which we aren't suspicious of, we know children can believe the gospel from a young age, be born again, we want to baptize them. We don't want to just be too suspicious of that. I don't think easy believism is a huge problem in our church, at least with the members of our church that understand the gospel and these things. So we're not going to be super suspicious. We do want to be involved with the parents on when the wise time to do that is. But once there is a baptism, then they have access to the table. So any child you see going to the table, we're assuming that the parents are going to make sure they aren't going to the table unless they're baptized. And if they are baptized, they're going to be at the table with us. And so wait for the ordinances until they're able to receive them by faith. Lastly, after the service, we're still seeking to be a blessing. We're still seeking to honor Christ. And so this is not, we don't give up on parenting after the service. Now, I know it's hard because we want a fellowship. We want to see brothers and sisters. I know our motives are pure here, guys, but we can't create an environment where there's chaos going on in the room to such an extent that fellowship can't happen, or that people judge us harshly that are new and visitors, and they say, look at these people, they don't even care about training their kids, and they judge harshly. When I know many of you, that is not true at all. You take very seriously the training of your children, but we want people to fellowship. We want people to be able to talk, and we want our kids to be a blessing. And so wrestling on the ground and just running like crazy all over the room, like, we just can't have it. And if we see each other's kids doing it, I think we love each other as a family, as a believing family, and we speak to each other's children and just say, hey, no running, guys. This is not the place. So lastly on that, one other thing, I just had a conversation with some of our men right before I made this video, because we are obviously trying to get into the new building. We're still working through many details on all that. In the works is an idea about putting a sort of park or a fenced in area outside of the building for the kids after the service, because many times they've been sitting for 2 hours. They've been sitting for close to 3 hours if they came to catechism before. I mean, it's getting long, the amount we're sitting. I want them to be able to move around. I think that especially the young ones, right? So to have a fenced in, a really nice fence we put outside, have some place for them to play, have a little patio for the parents to go out there and be able to fellowship. Like, that's in the works. Lord willing, we can get that happening relatively soon. But we want to be faithful, even at the end of the service, to remember this is still the Lord's gathering. Fellowship is happening right now, and our kids, we want them to be a part of that. We want them to fellowship or to talk with and be friends with their friends, but to do it in a respectful, God-honoring way. Guys, sometimes people ask, when are we going to hire a kids minister? When are we going to hire a youth minister? And I always kind of laugh and say we have many of them, and they're free. The parent is the youth minister. The parent is the children's minister. And so, guys, I am honored to come alongside you in this youth ministry, children's ministry role as a father and parent myself, and as a pastor. And just pray for you in this, be here for you. We're going to be gracious with each other, but we want to honor the Lord and take seriously the discipleship of our children in the context of the local church. So blessings, guys. We will talk to you soon. Bye.